Welcome back to the Finding Success radio show. We appreciate you tuning back in, and this is just our second show, and we're excited to be back here with Justin, Abram, and I'm Steven, and what we're here doing is just talking about how we are finding, replicating success, right? So, boys, how was your week? Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. New year. I had a little bit of a crazy debacle myself this past week. Coming back from Disney, and then everyone in my house catches the flu, so that was fun.
Ooh. How's everybody doing now?
Everyone's doing good. I was the only healthy one, thank God. I was able to take care of them, but man, I was like coming back from Disney, ready to like take 2020 by the horns, and I was like, holy moly, man! I had to take a step back and take care of my family for a little bit.
Sure.
But everyone's fully recovered, and we're gearing in for the new year.
Cool. Justin,
happy to be back at it, man. Yeah, happy New Year. You know, time to get moving. Got a lot of projects going on, a lot of big things going on, so looking forward to 2020. So.
Yeah, 2019 was amazing. 2020 even better. I'm excited that we are going to continue to talk to our audience about what success looks like, how do we define it, how do we attain it, how do we replicate it, what are the failures and teeth-kicking ins that we've all taken so that we can get over that and find real success. And I think this next year is going to be incredible in terms of growth. I'm excited about the guests that we have coming on here to talk about their successes and what they've done to achieve it. And look, the heart behind the whole show is we have attained some level of success, and it's always been on the shoulders of giants. And if you can learn something from this show, then we're accomplishing our goal, and if we can learn something, then certainly we're accomplishing our goal. So welcome back. Thank you very much for tuning in once again. I was listening to last week's show, and what we focused on a lot of was what are the pillars of success? How do we define it? We all had very similar definitions of it, which I found interesting because not a single one of them was monetary related, right? It was a lot about time. It was a lot about impact, it was a lot about influence, and it was a lot about giving back. So what I took away from that whole show was I think the world's definition of success has really been perverted about what real success actually is, and I think we did a good job of digging into that. And somebody that I'm excited to introduce to our guests is Christian Kane. He is the founder of Tom's River Field of Dreams, an incredible project that we're excited to talk to you about today, Christian, because it really hits on what we look at as what success can look like. How do you overcome obstacles? How do you put something in motion to become successful? So thank you so much for being here with us. And we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for having. This is, once again, a great opportunity, not only for myself, but obviously for you guys to, once again, help others. And as you said, if you're just finding success, a bank account, obviously always looks well, but what your imprint that you leave on your community while you're here and after you've left, I think sometimes carries a lot more weight than a pound of gold.
Yeah, and I think that's why we were excited to have you on as our first guest in the Finding Success radio show, was because you haven't built a city, you haven't acquired this insane amount of wealth. You're not a multi-billionaire, but what you are doing is impacting and influencing people for decades and generations to come. And I think collectively we decided that, wow, that's a really important endeavor, and I want to know more about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the project is, a little bit about your background, and how this has all come to be.
Yeah. The Field of Dreams is a nonprofit organization that back in March of 2017, my wife Mary and I, established. It really kind of, basically came from, on July 12th, 2012, from a car accident. I was waiting to make a turn into the high school that I teach at, which is Townsend North High School. And as I was waiting, my youngest son Gavin, was in the car, and we were hit from behind by a beer truck. I do remember, when coming to. The sound of nothing is, for a parent, probably the scariest sound you could hear, because when you get hit by something and a 19-month-old child isn't screaming or yelling, you have problems. There's an issue. And Gavin at the time, was a typical 19-month-old boy, just like our 5 other children. And but the the accident, he suffered a traumatic brain injury, a right front temporal stroke, and he basically went from something to nothing. And it puts you into a world that you never, you knew about, but you really didn't know too much about this special needs community, and you were thrown right into it. And it's been a long haul. I mean, we're lucky that Gavin's now 9, and he goes to Silver Bay Elementary School. He still can't walk or talk, but he's getting better every day, and which is for Mary and I, that's the greatest hope. But along this journey of trying to put the pieces back together for him, you meet so many other parents, who are in the same situation, no matter what your special need is. And as you were going to Children's Hospital in Toms River, you noticed that there was really no place for people to do things. In our world, it's about near 80% of all families with a special need end up in divorce because it is difficult. It's time consuming. It's tough on you mentally. It's tough on you physically. It drains everything out of you, and you're trying to do the best for your loved one that has a special need. And what happens is that there is no place for them to go. There's nowhere for the caretakers to be able to communicate with other people in regards to, hey, what doctor, what therapist, where do you go, what should I do? And we started to realize, like, oh my gosh, there's this need. But then in March of 2017 is when it hit home. As Gavin's getting now better, he wants to be the kid he used to be. He remembers what it's like to be a kid who runs around a playground. So Mary brings him to a special needs playground in our community. And it was one of those beautiful, March days where it's like 65. And the playground's crowded. And it's supposed to be a special needs, playground. So the part that Gavin can use is all the way to the far left in the corner. So problem number 1. Everyone's playing, but then the swing that he needed was in the far left corner. Second thing, she gets there, and there's kids who are typical who are on that swing. Now, mind you, there's tons of other swings that are empty. The one swing that he could use is now being used by a typical child, which is fine, but now here you are waiting for that. Child leaves. Now, Mary's 100 pounds soaking wet. Gavin is now, 75, 80 pounds. She's trying to get him on this swing, and it's moving, and she can't get him. Not one parent who is surrounding her or by her would get off their phone to look up and look back down. Not one person helped her. And it was at that point when she came home and says, listen, we need to create this complex. It's not just a playground. It's just not the baseball field. It's just not. It has to be a place where those who have a special need can feel typical. They can do everything else that everyone else can do. And it gives them an area that they know that they won't be stared at and that they'll be helped there. And they can enjoy in laughter and fun. And that's where it really started. Started with that incident now as Gavin's getting better. And Mary, who's typical, who is a strong woman, could not get him on that swing. And now what do you do? And then you knew, wait a minute, we can't be the only ones.
Right.
And it was. And we found out that we weren't the only ones and that there is a need. And that's basically where the Field of Dreams kind of started, with that story.
So a lot to unpack there. I mean, I'd love to dig into the complex. I think we'll probably do that a little bit later. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back a little bit to, just kind of, finding success for us, right, is everybody goes through some challenges. And, a lot of us can't imagine what it's like to go through kind of the situation that you guys went through as a family, right? I mean, I'm sure it affects your other children and your marriage. And you even brought up like, hey, a lot of this stuff ends in divorce. Yeah. So what does it look like coming through a horrific accident like that to, especially with a spouse, be on the same page and say, hey, we're not going to let this tear us apart. We're going to drive this together and we're still going to have a successful family here even through all of this adversity. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, when you get married, you fall in love with somebody and everything's fine because it's just the two of you. And it's hard to kind of know when now all of a sudden these incidences happen, or even having children, what the other partner is going to be like, because now you didn't have these pressures. However, you'll see as you're dating and as you're with somebody that there are hints and bits and pieces where it's like, hey, wow, she really dealt with that well, or he dealt with that well. And you kind of then from there say, that's the partner I want, the partner who is there when it's not only the good times, but it's of the worst of times. Now, mind you, the worst of times may not have to be that drastic like a car accident, but it could be simply as I didn't get the job promotion. Someone passed away, my aunt or uncle. And you can see there, and you'd love to tell people who are younger, hey, listen, when you're choosing that person that you're going to be with for the rest of your life, you're looking for these instances that are going to be now reflections of what it's going to be down the road when you have now a mortgage payment and you now have bills to pay and you now have children and they have, things that may happen to them. Now you'll know, listen, I know that person can deal with these obstacles, these tasks, because I've seen them do it in a smaller microcosm, but you know that it's there. And with Mary and I, we were just such great partners and great friends leading in prior to this. Was that when this happened, we've gone through little things and we just kind of just ran right through them, because as a team, that's what you have to do. So when this accident occurred, it was, like Mary was a no-brainer. She says, I'm not working anymore. I'm going to be with Gav. I'm like, fine, I'll take care of the other guys until we can get him back home. And from there, along the way, you do have instances where people are going, there's going to be wreckage, not only in the actual accident, but along the way, there's going to be things that are going to be missing out. So I've always told, our 4 older children that the Mary and the dad that you knew prior to the accident, they're gone. You're not going to have that mom and dad, because Gavin requires so much attention that the 4 olders now had to say, you know what, you're going to have to step up a little bit. And I'm not going to be around to do the same things that I did, because he needs me. He needs me more than you. You're physically able to do something. And it's been tough. Listen, there's no two ways about it. It's very difficult to then to tell those kids that and not to be able to be around as much as you'd like. But, in the long run, they watch what we do. And when they write a letter or an essay, or like our oldest daughter, Brielle, wrote essays for college applications, and she won grants for what she wrote about, it was about us, about Mary and I, about how they're our role models, that's what I want to be like. A person where whatever it takes, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be supportive, I'm going to help, and I'm going to sacrifice my life, the things that I like to do, for someone else who needs us.
What's probably incredible for your other kids to watch and see is they know that you would do the same thing for them. And, that's good to have strong kids that'll support you in that. And it's amazing to be the type of parents to be able to have the conversation that says, hey, you're still super important to me, but I'm going to need some help from you on that.
So it almost became divide and conquer, right? I mean, I have a lot of kids still.
Right.
I actually was one of Brielle's coaches for softball. And I remember seeing Mary there, and we met, years later, and I'm like, oh, cool. I know Brielle. But, same thing, obviously, with me. It is tough, because, the parent that, you were once with all the action and all the activity and all the attention, it's tough to divide it up, because, same thing with me. I mean, it's your son needs, all the help you could potentially give him, and potentially more, especially being, nonverbal and not being able to kind of communicate. Right. There's a lot of stress and pressure that comes along with just that portion of it. But, I think kids are resilient and they recognize it. And, it's not always the best scenario, but, I think, I know my kids, grew up a little bit quicker. I'm sure your kids, it's been the same thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. No, it's, but once again, this is how life is. Life isn't,
right.
It's not just a perfect golden path that, there's like you're living in a bubble. It's just, throughout your, daily, life, it's just you get these ups and downs, and it's the ones who are able to deal with the highs and the lows the best, because once again, I mean, you got to deal with the lows, but it's also, how do you deal with the highs? Are you going to be, are you just going to just accept the high and just say, yeah, I did something good, and therefore, and just still be even keeled and understand and appreciate what you did, but then, move on to say, all right, this was a high for me, but this is not going to be the only high. I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep trying to get a little bit better every single day. And, as a parent, it's difficult because, you're the mom and the dad, and they're like, they roll your eyes at you, and you're like, what do you know and stuff. And, I think
everything,
being, right. And, then being a teacher, being a high school math teacher, you touch so many, lives, and, how do you get 17, 18-year-olds to want to learn about, statistics, at, 8 o'clock in the morning? There's got to be something there that says, listen, this is how life is, and there's going to be things that we want to do and we don't want to do. But if you're going to do something, it's got to be 100%. You got to be all in.
Absolutely.
And if you're not all in, then, no matter if it's a class, your work or your marriage, then I don't know why you're wasting your time. To me, it doesn't really make, too much sense.
It's a great success pillar, right? And we talked about this a little bit last week on going all in, and how do we make sure that we're convicted and committed to the next thing, right? Whether it's your marriage or whatever your purpose is at that point. So it's an incredibly inspiring story because you have seen the adversity. You guys are working through it together. So let's fast forward a little bit to the Field of Dreams. So you're telling us a little bit about the story about, Mary going to the park and having some issues and being by herself and not being able to get Gavin onto the swing and stuff. So how do you turn that, struggle at the park one day into what this has become, which is an incredible, multi-million-dollar project with literally hundreds, maybe thousands of hands helping and reaching out? And I mean, I know I've seen some amazing press from some New York Mets and so just so many people helping out. So how do you go from that day at the park to this? I mean, just walk us through that. Mary comes home and says, "Hey, we got to do something."
Right.
But
so basically, how it worked was down in Upseekin, New Jersey. They have this Miracle League, and so this basically where people with a special need, whatever your need is. You can play like a 2-inning baseball game, and you hear your name, you get to go go up to the plate, you hit the ball, you get a base hit, people are cheering for you, and we're like, this is phenomenal. Now, so Gavin's involved in this, but it's an hour and 15 minutes away. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world, the mecca of baseball, Toms River, how in the world is there not a special needs baseball field? Now, not to say that there isn't challenger leagues, like Toms River baseball runs one, and the only problem is they run it on dirt, and Gavin's in a wheelchair. It rains, on a Thursday. By the time they do it on Sunday, he's still trudging around in the dirt. That's not the idea. The idea was for him to be able to move around just like everyone else as best to his ability. So the idea was really, all right, we're going to build a baseball field and like a snack shack, and we'll run leagues, and that was it. $225,000, that was it. And I was thinking to myself, all right, listen, I know enough people that maybe if I told my story that we can do this. So then when Mary came on that day in March, and she says, listen, I know you want this baseball field and stuff, but that ain't it. She says, I said, what do you mean that's it?
Mary's got bigger vision.
Not enough.
And what happened was, she says, listen, no, we need a playground where if you're in a wheelchair, you can stay in a wheelchair, not be stared at, be able to go down a slide or go down a zip line, or like the wheels for being, once again, she was an elementary teacher as well. The wheels were already in motion. She already knew that this wasn't fair. And that was really what it came down to, that this just isn't right. This is an injustice. Why? Because you got into a car accident, or you had a birth defect, or you got some type of cancer. Why all of a sudden, you sit in the corner, you sit there because you're out of the game now. And that just isn't fair. So she said we needed this. So we reached out to our friend Mike Rattacco, who I've known since he was a kid. And I've been living in Toms River for like the last 25 years, and I know people, but I don't really know people. And I knew that I needed to go to somebody who was, well known within the community. And he said, listen, you need to start a nonprofit, and boom, 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 boom. And I said, all right. So how does that, how do you work from there? And he says, well, you got to do this, you got to get you need a lawyer, you need an accountant, you need a board of trustees. And I said, what the heck's a board of trustees?
Right.
So he said,
trying to build a playground.
I said, yeah, I don't know. Like,
on a baseball
and that's what I was
field.
telling him. I don't need this. I just need, I just need to raise money. He says, yeah, but if you don't have people behind you that people can trust, your story will only go so far because, people are going to need to know that here you are, you're telling this story and you're telling them about building this thing and it's all in your head. Like you have nothing except a great way of telling the story. And it's personable and it's, it could happen to you and you bring that home. And he says, you have a way where when you're done talking, people are going to say, okay, where do I write the check out to? Or how can I help? It was never, well, I'm not really sure. So he helped me form, this board. And, obviously Justin joined in. You got a Jeremy Grunin, a Noel Carino, and you start a Michael York. All of a sudden, he started collecting this group of Toms River people who are going to want to be in Toms River for a very long time. And then when I started to then ask for money, the major question was after my story was, well, do you have a board of trustees? And it was like, I do. And I showed them the list and they're like, sure, I'll donate. I'll invest. I'll be a part of you.
Perfect. So he gave you the right roadmap.
So he, Mike really kind of, at least with the board and with the foundation, kind of had the path. Now, really the issue was, controlling my wife because it was more and more stuff. So now it turned from just a baseball field and a snack shack to now this all-inclusive playground. But then other kids wanted to do other things. Like, I don't want to play baseball. I'd rather play, bocce ball. I'd rather play basketball, or I'd rather play miniature golf. So it's just like whole. So now here come the courts, which has bocce ball and basketball. Here comes a 6-hole miniature golf course. Then, as I was starting to do these fundraising talks, all of a sudden I'm looking out into the audience, and I'm not talking to 8-year-olds and 12-year-olds. I'm talking to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. And whatever the reason, they're in a wheelchair and what they need. So all of a sudden, it went from now just a playground/baseball field to now an all-inclusive complex for anyone of any age. So therefore, you need a walking path so people can now, after knee replacement or hip replacement, they have a place to go to do rehabilitation, not in their home, but outside. You built a playground so that a grandma who used to take care of her 3 grandchildren but then suffered a stroke, well, now she's not grandma anymore because she doesn't have half the use of her body, but now she can now go on a merry-go-round or down a zip line and be the grandmother that she used to be, but still be in her wheelchair, but still be the grandmother that can participate and do things. So that then all of a sudden you had a Thrive station, for help people with rehabilitation. So now this thing is now just off the hook, and now all of a sudden you're looking at not $250,000 anymore, but now you're looking at $2.2 million, and you're like, well, I'm not sure if I know how to do that. And it wasn't really, it wasn't going to a book. And it wasn't going to like a manual, because there is no manual, just like being a special needs parent. There is no manual. You do what you think is best, and you hope the decisions you make are the ones that are correct. And it's not like we had, everything work out fine, but the game plan was, how am I going to raise all this money, but then also be able to, after it's built, how do I get this to be now a living, breathing entity? And that was the most important part. That when I was going to investors, it's not, hey, listen, I'm not slapping this thing on the ground and then walking away and saying, I said, no, this thing is going to live and breathe. This is going to be able to have people who are typical to do 50 to 100 hours of community service. This is going to be where caretakers can drop off their loved ones. And now, instead of sitting in a waiting room, no, you're going to sit next to another special needs parent. You'll be able to network with doctors and therapists, but also be able to see your loved one either do something that they never did before or something that they used to do. And then that's how all of a sudden this thing really took off in regards to donors, is because you went from now just, kids, you went to everyone. Because eventually everyone's going to need something where they're going to have to do some kind of rehabilitation or they're going to have a loss of some part of their bodily ability. And so things then really started to roll, and the community, and it's a one-man show. Like, I have a board, and they're great, but they have lives. Justin's on the board, and he's got a million things, and I feel bad asking him to say, "Hey, Justin, can you do this?" I'll do it myself.
Justin, you're doing other stuff? Come on, man.
On occasion.
But it was for the most part for a while a one-man show, and it's
and you have a job and you have a life and you have a family. I mean, it's not like this is
no.
I mean, so we're all part of different nonprofits in and around the community, and the people that typically start those things, that is their job, right? So it's no easy feat. It's not like you do this in the off hours and you can build this multi-million-dollar nonprofit on the side, right? It's 2 full-time jobs.
It's 2 full-time jobs. Being a dad and being a husband and caretaker.
Dad, right.
Yeah.
So you probably get a lot of sleep.
Enough, but the drive is there because you want to see it built, because you know how it's going to help so many people, not only in Toms River but in Monmouth, Ocean, and Burlington County. There's nothing quite like this in the country, and that's what makes it so different.
Sure.
I'm not going to say there aren't special needs playgrounds or special needs areas. Like, I'm not denying that there are, but not like something like this where it's for anyone of any age to be able to offer all these leagues and all these different, special events. Like a perfect example of, like, how can Gavin go pumpkin picking? Seriously, he's in a wheelchair. How can I take him there? It's something that we used to do with all our kids. Well, it's real simple. You take the baseball field, you get your local landscapers and say, listen, I need you to help. I need you to get me hay. I need you to get me pumpkins. I need you to lay it out all over the field so that, for one day from noon to like 8, I can get people who are in a wheelchair, no matter what their age is, and they can go out and now feel the experience of hearing the music about Halloween and the fall festival. Go get a pumpkin, not have to worry about like staring and watching everyone else do it. No, you go out there, you go get your pumpkin, you go up and have a hot chocolate or whatever the case may be, and now you're giving them something to live for, something that they used to either do or never thought they can do. And it gives them now a purpose that, hey, listen, now I have somewhere to go, somewhere I don't get stared at, somewhere I can feel these feelings that everyone else gets to appreciate. And the community's been behind it, and along the way you meet great people, and I don't know why I'm able to pick up or learn quickly. Why did I come up with the idea of asking for only half the money up from all my donors, and then all of a sudden give me the rest of the amount spread out over 5 or 10 years? Why did that pop in my head? I don't know why. Just like, how do you publicize so that you're in the New York Daily News, you're in the New York Post, you're on these different radio shows, you're on ABC News. Like, I don't know anybody knows how to do that, but you figure it out because this is something that means so much to you that you'd be willing to do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah, I think it's a higher level of thinking, I think, at the end of the day. When you're passionate about something and you need to get something done, you look at ways, I think, to leverage your time to make sure that your time is best spent doing something that's going to accomplish your goal the quickest.
Right.
So obviously audience and, impact and influence are, major things. And that's why I think you were able to kind of steam through and get a lot of this stuff done, is because you used your network, that had a bigger audience and was able to kind of get the message across in a quicker manner, because obviously this is something we want to get built, as soon as possible. And I think really, from you to go from 2017 to now, even to get as far as where we went, it's crazy because you don't have a background in building, or
I'm
dealing
a high school
with governments,
math teacher, which is basically, those who can't work teach. Right, I get it.
And raise millions of dollars.
But, once again, and you're right. I didn't have the networking at all, but I used the people who I knew had that and said, listen, that kind of makes sense. What? I don't know any of these people, but you do. And you got to then hear my story, and then you got to put your effort into doing this, and you got to sell them. But that's what a teacher is. You got to sell that what you're putting up on the board actually makes sense and is relevant. And that's why I got into teaching, just because simply of the fact that I wanted to do something in regards to my life so that when I passed away, my life lived on. So, when I was an actuary, my life wasn't living on because I was living to, basically make money, but there was no purpose. And then when the opportunity to teaching and coaching came along, it fell in so quickly for me because of the fact that I was helping other people, feel better or become better. And when I'm long gone and people then say, oh, I remember being taught by this guy and he was out of his mind. He's out of his mind. But I do remember him teaching me this. And then he's telling his son or daughter, like, this is how you're supposed to do it. And this is the way. And that's how you
Love that.
That's how your life, your purpose, I think for everyone should be. And you had started off the conversation about about money. You're right. Some people see money as the most important thing. And listen, I get it. We all need money. You got to pay your bills and do all that. But at the end of the day, when your time is time to click out, you don't take that money with you. And all you're taking with you is your spirit. And when it's all said and done, how do you live on? Mm-hmm. And that's the most important part. Are you that impressionable that people will remember you so that you're keeping on living on? And I think it's important that everyone in some kind of aspect does that. Whatever it is. Listen, you don't have to build a special needs complex to leave an impression.
But not a bad idea.
It moves you along the food chain a little bit.
Right.
But, it could be someone who's very wealthy, but if you disperse out so much money and you're significantly helping others, well, then you are leaving a lasting impression. But it could be simple as the person who lives next door to you, when the accident happens, to walk across the street or come over and say, hey, listen, I'll take care of the dogs. I know you have to go up to see. See what I'm saying? Like it
Sure.
depends on how you look at things. But the idea is to forget about yourself for a moment and try to put a smile on someone else's face or help someone else when when the chips are down.
Last week we talked a lot about, there's no shortage of need in the world, right? And a lot of people are starting to move from this success conversation to the significance conversation. And I think that's what you're talking about right now, right? Is how do you leave a legacy where it is significant, right? I mean, your kids are going to have, the pleasure of watching you guys build something that leaves legacy even when you are long gone. There's no pockets in coffins the last time I checked. So you can make a bunch of money, but if it's not doing something significant to impact the community that you're in, and the fact that it was birthed from a car accident that you had to go through is, it's a bad situation that you guys are really turning into something that is incredible, right? A lot of people jumping on board, a lot of people being impacted for many years to come. I don't know if there's a better definition of what success could look like. I mean, we're blown away.
I think it's historical.
Yeah,
I mean, when people look back, and you look back on history, and it's, what did you do? And your kids are going to be able to look back and say, like, they may not know now the impact because obviously it's all fresh, it's new, and
right.
It's something that's happening in real time. But I think when you look back in history, that's when you see, like, oh wow, like you could see the impact of what happened because of what you built and all the stories that are going to come out and all the memories that are going to come out from this park that would not have been able to exist because, again, our children, our special needs children wouldn't have had these opportunities, and now they will. So
yeah, that when you're doing this, you don't look at that. You're not looking at the impact, of what you're doing. It's kind of like, being, I played, baseball in college, and you don't look at during the season of, oh my gosh, what, after the season's over, what this is going to mean, back 20, 30, 40 years. Then when you look back at, you don't, like, when you're in the moment, you don't really reflect on what you have done until it's so far down the road that you're like, wow, I really made an impression. I know now, like, I don't think that way. I guess because I'm so just grinding with getting this project completed that I the only thing I'm worrying about is, like, all right, did I get to the 2.2 million? Did I, did everything get ordered? Is everything going to be built? How is this thing going to live? Like, I'm already 6 months ahead of wherever I need to be. So, like, here's an example. Like, so it's January. I'm already under the belief that this thing's built. So in my head, what I'm working on now is the leagues, the festivals, who's going to sponsor them, who's going to be there to run it. I'm going to hire somebody to be able to be there on a 4 or 5 times a week to be there to make sure that the complex is safe and people are having fun. So I think, you're so caught up though, and you need to always though be ahead and preparing, because if you try to prepare in June to try to run a festival in July, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
It's all this preparatory work that you're doing leading into that kind of makes it move a little bit smoother. But then look at all that, your time you're using on getting to that 6 months period or being a year ahead, I don't have time to reflect on what have I done? People have told me, and then when they tell, my gosh, you've done such a great thing, and my wife is next to me, and then she rolls her eyes like, he's not really that great. And I tell my wife, I say, I don't think it's not getting into my head. It's just,
I love it.
She's such a grounded person because she sees me just as the guy she met and the guy she married, and just that. Typical guy who's a dad and
they're not going to let our heads get big.
No,
that's for sure. And you know what? I love that though, because from the outside looking in, right? It's very easy for people to go, "Oh man, look at what you've done," blah blah blah. They're in it day in, day out with us, and I'm talking collectively about all of our wives as we go through this stuff. And I started laughing. I had what I considered a pretty brilliant idea recently in my kitchen, and I said it, and my wife was like, "Uh huh." And I was like, this is brilliant. I don't know if you've grasped how brilliant this is. And she goes, yeah, it's good. And I started laughing, and she was like, why are you laughing? I said, because you really do keep me grounded, regardless of where we go in life. She's been there through the whole thing. She'll never let my head get big. And I think you need that, right?
Yeah.
I think part of that humility only comes and stays if the people around you in your circle don't let your head get too big, So, all right. So you just went through a lot. Let's unpack that a little bit too. I in terms of applying success principles, what you've learned through this whole process. Head down, step by step. You're taking on one challenge at a time. Now we're getting close, right? You're getting close to breaking ground. You just mentioned you're 6 months ahead of the project. I know from a business standpoint, we all do like the 3-year, 5-year, 1-year goal, break it down into quarterly rocks. What's it look like from your perspective moving forward? Do you guys set goals, fundraising goals, how many meetings you're doing? I mean, on top of your job and, being a dad and a husband and all that stuff, how are you mapping that out to keep yourself on track? Because I'm sure there's days that, as exciting as this project is, it's drudgery, right? I mean, there's some challenges and there's some drudgery of admin stuff that you don't want to do, and
Permits.
The vein
One
of our
word.
life right now.
Yes,
One word.
we know it well.
And once again, you're doing something. As I said before, I've never done anything like this before, and you're learning the game. And listen, you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. And if and once again, so many people have given me leads, and it's like, I never really thought you were going to call them. I said, no, you told me to do that. I'm going to do that. And the whole process of the building aspect that that you're learning on the fly. And that's really been kind of like our holdup. But I understand why. Because if you are building something, you want it to be done correctly. And you want to make sure it's to code. And you just don't want to slap something in. Because as everyone said, it says you've done so much intricate work in regards to developing this. Not only the actual complex, but how you built the model for this company, this foundation to survive. Not only after the first year, but for the next 5 or 10 years where our annual income, I mean, besides our one major fundraiser, which is a casino night, in this regards, late April, that's really our own really major event. And the annual income that's coming in from all the naming rights from all the different locations within the complex, that's going to allow us to hire people, run the festivals, run the leagues, maintain the complex to a point where it looks brand new every single time you walk in. So once again, why that popped in my head and why I thought that was the way to do it, I couldn't answer it. It just made sense to me. It made sense that I needed money up front, but I needed a lot more money for this to withstand. But the complex itself, once it's built, and you're hoping that by the end of May, that you'll have a grand opening and people will be able to come and now utilize this complex. Is once it's open, you want to be able to make sure that this thing's being utilized. And that's where all this now pre-stuff that it's in my head that I'm writing down in a journal, it becomes so important. And you're reaching out to entities already, RWJ Barnabas and, Encompass and all these other different health groups, health companies that are out there and say, listen, how can you have your volunteers or your workers volunteer at the complex? How do you get Lowe's and Home Depot and HAECO, like different entities, that are big businesses in our community? How are you going to help? And so you already have that lined up. So that's really, to me, if you're running a business, it's not only about the day-to-day, it's about, in the future, that's just as important as what we're doing now. So in regards to our foundation, financially we're solid because of the naming rights and because of our one, significant casino night. But what's so funny about the community is right now I'm at a point where people are wanting to do fundraisers for us. And so here's an example. So Mary and I go to a gym because we have that actual time to do that, but we do. But it's it's 5 o'clock in the morning. So you get there, you do what you got to do. Because if you're not good healthily, I don't know, you're not going to survive. But it's Force Fitness, and a lady in my class works for Allied Beverage, and she's like a really high up, and they're based in Elizabeth, and basically they supply all the liquor for all the spirits and most liquor stores within Toms River and the surrounding communities, and Force Fitness and Allied Beverage / Spirits came to us and said, "Listen, we want to do a wine and dine, which is on January 18th, 6:30 to 9:30.
I'm going to be there
at the RWJ Barnabas Health, and it's underneath one roof. You ready for this? You get over 100 different beer, wine, and liqueurs to taste.
Wow!
You have 10 local restaurants giving away free food. You have gift baskets. You have auctions. You have a live band, and this band's good. And so it's underneath one roof. How to get all that? For 3 hours, $70. Where else can you do that?
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a good time.
Right. It's gonna be a blast because if you ever been to our casino nights, those things are absolute parties. Because that's the idea. You want to embrace if you're going to be doing something, embrace it. Here we go again. Totally, you're all in. So if you're going to do an event, you want it to be as much of a party as it possibly can be. And you want to appreciate the people who are actually giving you $70 for a ticket to say, hey, listen, I really got my money's worth. Great. So when we do something else, you know that you're going to get 100% from us and that you know your money is going to be appreciated. So they come together, Allied Beverage and Force Fitness, and said, listen, we'll do it all. The only thing we need is, can you get us a place that can hold anywhere between 350 to 450 people? I said, no problem.
No problem.
I'll take care of that. And that's what's great about the community. Now, a lot of the times we do fundraisers, sometimes I don't have to, people come to us now and say, listen, we want to do a fundraiser for the Field of Dreams. We want to help you out. I mean, we had in October, Dine for TFOD. So this is another one of these ideas. Why is it pop in my head? I have no idea. But most clubs within schools have from 5 to 8, dine at Burger 25. And, they'll give 10% of the process.
Yeah.
So why did it pop in my head? It's why am I going to just do one restaurant? Why don't I just get all of them? And that's what we did. We had October 24th, it just passed. We had a dine for TRFOD. We had over 40 restaurants, all within Toms River, on that one day. Say, listen, you just go in there. Say, listen, I'm the reason why I'm here is because I want to dine for TRFOD. And then whatever the restaurant wanted to give, I could care less, 10%, 20%, 15%, they gave us a donation. That raised a little bit over $12,000.
Wow.
But that's something that usually only raises $250 for one little place, was able to raise $12,000 on one day. But that's the thing about Toms River and the surrounding areas is that when they heard the story, and that's the hardest part, that's to me still the hardest part, how do you get the people to know about your story? I mean, social media and all this other stuff I'm not very good at, but how do you get more people to know about the story? How do you get more people to know about, what you're doing in your life? If you can ever master that, then you got something, because now you're just pulling people in left and right. For a project that needs people to be helpful.
You mentioned earlier that you're hoping to hit that 2.2. How far off are you guys right now?
If the wine and dine does what it's supposed to do, and if the casino night does what it's supposed to do, then I'll have the 2.2 million. Excellent. And in my mind, as a math guy, it doesn't make sense. When I went into this, I actually thought, let me build this thing, and then I think I'll get the back end of the money.
Right.
Because, all right, here I am now selling something, but I'm saying, here it is. I'll bring people to the place and say, listen, let's have a meeting at the Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
And now this is where your money's going to. And to me, now I'm not a business guy, as a math guy, that what would make sense. Have something built, show it, people will invest. Well, it turned out to be opposite. We'll actually have the money that we actually need, and we still haven't built anything yet. Not to say we're not going to be building it, but it doesn't make sense. Now, what really helped along the way was our website. Once again, here's, you have a group, KB Technical, that listen, don't worry about your website. We'll take care of it. You have a Martin Recreation. You know what? We'll build you a virtual tour. Don't worry about it. You have, A+ letter service. You know what? You need printing needs? Don't worry about it. There's so many entities that just said, hey, listen, we know, we get your passion. We get what you're doing. We're gonna help you out. And there's such a long list of all these different communities and different entities that helped us out that I could be here for 2 hours just ringing them out because that's how many people have been involved in this. But yeah, if the January 18th event and the April 25th event, if they sell out like they usually do, then we'd have the 2.2 million. That's
not to say close your checkbooks, though. That still means that there's plenty of work to be done moving forward.
Of course.
So you might not be able to help in the construction, but you can certainly help moving forward and helping out with these leagues and getting the people there. And, Justin and I were talking about something that I think would be really cool, which is, typically the financial burden, right, on special needs parents is such that maybe they can't go out and afford a league. Right. So to be able to have those scholarships available for people to participate in those leagues and all these different options that you guys are going to be offering. So there's still no shortage of need here. We still need you guys to, go to tomsriverfieldofdreams.com and figure out a way how to donate, how to volunteer, reach out to Christian or Justin or anybody on the board and figure out a way to how to help. I mean, such a great cause, so many people that can help. And, we're excited to be a part of it. This will be my first event, the Wine and Dine, and so we're excited about that. So we got about 10 minutes left. So I think, we touched on a lot of things in terms of overcoming adversity, how to plan, how to, get out of your comfort zone, certainly, and out of the math classroom and start raising millions of dollars and getting people around you to help, which I think is the crux of probably all of our successes, which is other people can get you there. Right, it's telling the story, finding your tribe of people, right? People that come out of the woodwork and go, oh, hey, that's a lot like my story. And when you start to find your people, then you start to, many hands make light work. So it's an inspiring, just kind of community tale of people coming together. I'm on your website right now and just seeing all of the different local and national companies that have reached out to you guys and how they're helping and stuff. So really cool. What do you guys got to add here?
Yeah, the only thing, it's been an incredible journey. We partnered with you early on, and we were just like, this is it. We want to be part of this. And, just hearing your story, we've been sharing it and so forth. But now that it's like almost here, and it's at the finish line, kicking off, opening the grand opening, what do you envision, Christian, I guess, someone with special needs showing up to this park for the first time? What's the process? Are they gonna? Is there gonna be like a registration? Is anyone able to just show up? Right. Especially if like a non-special needs is there. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, the idea is, so like an example. Let's just do our family. So you have 5 children that are typical, and you have one, that has a special need, and you are hoping that it'll be open, just like a regular park. So you're talking like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and a family like ours will go in there, and you'll have volunteers there. And basically, the volunteers, you're hoping they're, for the most part, the high school students, from the 4 major high schools that are surround the Field of Dreams, is that they just come up to, Gavin, who's in a wheelchair, and not really worried about that he's in a wheelchair, just say hello. Hey, would you like to try, a zip line? Hey, would you like to go on a swing? Hey, you want to have a catch? That's all. Or we're out playing and a volunteer comes by and says, "Hey, listen, is there anything I can get you? Is there anything you need?" The goal is to make people who are in a wheelchair or who have a special need, all of a sudden, all of that be stripped away, and now everyone looks at each other eye to eye.
Getting that sense of normalcy back.
Yeah, and it's not because I'm a wheelchair. Well, I can't do this. I can't. No, you can. You're going to try it. And if you fail, all right, so be it. But at least you got to try it. It allows them parents who, once again, who are with special needs, you don't have to worry about now, oh, well, it's $89 to get into Great Adventure. It's $74 to get in Sesame Place. No, you're going to have the same type of fun at those two places here at the Field of Dreams. Now, the one thing that will make us a lot different from everybody, and that's our goal, is once we have this built, is we will have 2 special need bathrooms that are unlike anything in the country, where if you have a loved one, no matter what their size and what their age is, that you'll have a place where you can now take care of your loved one if they have some kind of, bathroom need.
So that's a big deal. I mean,
this is huge.
So
I know when I go to Yankee Stadium or to Citi Field or to MetLife, I would have to lay Gavin on the floor, and you're talking 3 entities that do not have special needs bathroom. I mean, they have this little thing that comes off the wall that can hold a baby there, or maybe up to 30 pounds.
Yeah.
But they don't have what we're going to have, which is an actual platform lift, and all you do is press on it, and it holds anywhere from 10 pounds all the way up to 550 pounds. And basically, a curtain comes around you. You have your own privacy, you have your own space, and you take care of your loved one as if you would have taken care of them at their own home. And then that decency, that feel of, all right, I'm not going to be stared at, I'm not going to be watched at, I don't have to leave. Right. Same thing. It's like the quiet corner that we're also building. A mom came up to me and says, listen, I have 3 sons, 17, 15, and 11. 17, 11, highly autistic. 15-year-old, perfectly typical. And wherever they go, one of the boys, or if not both of the boys who are autistic, has an issue. And what happens? Either they all have to leave or they split up. And that's not the idea. The idea is, hey, listen, can you build me a place where I can take 1 or 2 of my children? If they have an issue, let's resolve the issue. But then she said, but then we can re-enter and go back to what we were doing. And then to learn, listen, you didn't get your way? Let's deal with that feeling. Let's deal with that problem. But just know we're going back to doing what we're doing. So you're teaching like life lessons. So, that's basically the idea of the complex, where there is no fee. Same thing, all the leagues, all the festivals, all that will be the fundraising, everything that we've done, because they need to know that it's not going to cost them. Like, that shouldn't hinder them. Just like it shouldn't hinder somebody in a wheelchair not to be able to go down a slide or a swing or to hit a home run in a game or make a basket in a basketball game. Like, that should not stop you from getting that feeling of success, fun, enjoyment because something happened in your life that made you worse. So that's the idea. When you come in here, that's the goal, that when everyone enters, they'll be able to experience things, be if they're typical or not.
I love that. Perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome. I actually had a special needs brother that passed away a couple years ago, and I was his guardian for a couple years. And growing up with him in wheelchairs, going out, and having that understanding of what that looks like to try to change a 30-year-old, 160-pound man who's in diapers in a bathroom stall at the mall. It's a difficult thing to do. Right, so to even just think about, wow, we can go down a slide together, right? We can go put them on a swing and do those types of things. It's something that certainly pulls at my heartstrings, and I'm sure that there's a ton of families that you're meeting through this process that you get to do too. So we're going to wrap up here, and we really appreciate you taking the time. We do have one thing that we want to talk about from our end real quick. So I own Integrity Holdings Group, which is a commercial real estate investment firm. My team is actually in the house. So Travis Cotter is my partner. He's way in the back there. And then Sean, who's my chief operating officer, came in to listen to your story. And these guys being on the board and also being donors, and hearing your story and how it has affected us, we just want to read this quick letter to you if you don't mind. So Integrity Holdings Group, commercial real estate investment firm focused on purchasing and developing multifamily self-storage, student housing assets in the Midwest and Southeast. We're devoted to offering safe, consistent investment opportunities secured by real estate. That's just what we do, right? We provide a wealth-building vehicle that creates value and hopefully changes lives. In every project that we do, we partner with a nonprofit with a mission that we believe in, like yours. We know that fundraising is a time-consuming yet necessary task, and it takes time away from the mission at hand. We aim to help by providing a source of consistent and passive income for years to come through these projects. And in 2020, we're pleased to announce that we are intending to partner with you and your organization on one of our future projects this year. The specifics of timing and donation amounts are not yet known, as we're not sure what this year will bring in terms of acquisitions. But our company goal is to close on 4 to 6 projects and partner with the same number of organizations like yours in the process. Our acquisition targets are between $5 to $20 million. Similar projects should produce anywhere between $75,000 to over $300,000 in donations per project to our partners over a 5-year period of time. Wow. And that's our typical project duration. So we definitely want to talk to you more offline about the specifics of it.
But that's great. That's
we're really
ridiculous.
excited.
Oh, man.
So thank you for everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody at Remax Revolution, for bringing us into the opportunity to be able to partner with you guys. And I know that we're all really excited to do that with you this year. So we'll get into the specifics. So I think we are out of time, and I think we have covered a lot of success stories today. So go out, tomsriverfieldofdreams.com, and go out and continue to find your own success.
Thank you for tuning in to the Finding Success Show.